What's good? It's your boy CJ Goodfellow. We back with the Boxing Clinic. Back once again. And, Gennady Golovkin, in the boxing scene article I'll link in the description, says if he don't know if he's going to fight Canelo. He said in another article. But he also says that, if no Canelo rematch, then he wants to fight for the WBO title. But that's a issue right there. Because if Canelo Alvarez doesn't fight, Gennady Golovkin and David Lemieux wins, it's going to be David Lemieux versus Canelo Alvarez in the Golden Boy, all-out Golden Boy fight. But Oscar De La Hoya said that they gonna fight. Canelo wants to fight Triple G again. It's going to happen. But hypothetically speaking, if it doesn't happen, for whatever reason it is, if Golovkin prices itself out or Canelo prices itself out or, it's a raw deal on one of the ends and, somebody want more leverage than the other, whatever happens, the only way that Gennady Golovkin is getting this shot at the WBO title if Billy Joe Saunders wins. And Billy Joe Saunders being the champion is in an uphill battle. He's slim and trim right now, but he was slim and trim for Willie Monroe, Jr., and he looked like dog shit, but, I wouldn't be surprised if Billy Joe Saunders did win. He's the more skillful fighter. Doesn't mean he's going to win. But, it would definitely be a bidding war between Golovkin and Canelo if Billy Joe Saunders was to defeat Dave Lemieux in Canada for Billy Joe Saunders' services. That's exactly what it would be. It would be, Golovkin and his team trying to give him the best deal, but we all know Canelo can give Billy Joe Saunders the most money. But if David Lemieux wins, there's no way, Golovkin is getting that WBO title off of David Lemieux. And what that would mean is that if it's not a unification bout, which that's only one belt that he doesn't have, he would be obligated to face Jermall Charlo. And that's what I keep telling y'all. He's mentioning fighting everybody but Jermall Charlo, which is his WBC mandatory. He was given the WBC belt by the WBC and hasn't had to face one mandatory opponent yet since, getting it from Canelo Alvarez. And Jermall Charlo, the brother of Jermall Charlo at 154 pounds, he had to fight for his belt against, Julian Jackson boy, John Jackson, in a hard-fought victory. And then he had to make 2 mandatory defenses of that title. Golovkin has fought a few fights since getting the belt from Canelo and hasn't had to face one mandatory in the WBC. Because Jorge Sebastian Highland's been a WBC mandatory for quite some time. And if you're talking about the Danny Jacobs fight, Danny Jacobs was the regular WBA champion. He was his WBA mandatory, So Golovkin has been able to avoid fighting the WBC mandatory for quite some time now. So I don't believe there's no way, shape, and form anything less than about $1 million for Jermall Charlo to step aside if it's not a unification bout. It ain't gonna happen, unless it's worth its while. And Triple G ain't pumping out that type of money. He might not even have $1 million to play around with, you dig? So, he's talking about, if it's a big fight at 168, I move there. Or I want Billy Joe Saunders, the WBO title, Billy Joe Saunders. I want Canelo Alvarez. He's saying all the names except for Jermall Charlo, which is his mandatory. And if Canelo Alvarez faces whoever had a WBO championship next, it's no Danny Jacobs. It's no, whoever else out there. Or unless he moves to 168 and drop his belt, it's Jermall Charlo. And that's a fight that it seems that Team Triple G doesn't want. Abel Sanchez was on record. I did a video on it. And you go to Dante's Boxing Nation about 2 months ago. He was on there doing an interview with Dante saying that the Jermall Charlo fight was bad for the sport of boxing. Said that Jermall Charlo hasn't earned this fight and earned his way to be the WBC mandatory only by beating Jorge Sebastian Highland. He needs to do more. At the end of the day, what did Dominic Wade do to deserve a shot? What did Gabriel Brazado do to deserve a shot? What did Proska do to deserve a shot? You feel what I'm getting at? What did Matthew Macklin do to deserve a shot? What did Martin Murray do to deserve a shot? Let's be real. Let's keep it real. He fought a lot of, what did Kell Brook do to deserve a shot? He ain't even fought one fight at the middleweight limit. He only had one true test at his own weight class versus Sean Porter at 147. So let's keep it real, you know. When they started waffling and say, you know, what trying to make the requirements on the fly and throwing rocks when they live in a glass house, ain't nobody trying to hear that. When they start waffling and making excuses and saying who deserves a title shot, when they clearly the mandatory, however they got to be the mandatory, they're the mandatory for a reason. You know, and you always saying we got to fight our mandatory. You will fight any other mandatory real quick. But when it comes down to somebody who's a legit threat, it's an issue. You know, oh no, we don't want to do that. At the end of the day, if David Lemieux beats Billy Joe Saunders and some reason why Triple G and Canelo negotiations fall apart, you know, like Oscar said, it'll be done. But if it somehow falls apart, you know, he is obligated to face Jermall Charlo unless he pays some step-aside money. But who else is he going to fight? Come on, let's keep it real. Not Danny Jacobs, but Danny Jacobs. You know, he going to fight Danny Jacobs again? Danny Jacobs looked pretty damn good versus Luis Arias. You know, with ring rust. He looked strong. He looked more confident. He looked fast. You know, that's who you're going to fight? And then at the end of the day, if you beat Danny Jacobs, you know, there's no promise that Canelo going to fight you again. Then you got to face your mandatory Jermall Charlo anyway. You feel me? You know, so, you know, it is what it is, man. All these guys, you're looking for the easiest way out, the biggest payday out. But at the end of the day, these sanctioning bodies hold different champions to different standards. And I understand he got 3 belts. He has obligations to fight all 3, you know, mandatories from all 3 different belts. You know, Dominic Wade somehow became his IBF mandatory, I believe. He fought Danny Jacobs, the WBA mandatory. So the WBC mandatory, he ain't fought that yet. He never fought for the belt, but the other Charlo twin was made to make 2 voluntary defenses before he was able to go move on with his life and fight who he want to fight. So Triple G the requirements for Triple G is totally different. You know, he was handed the belt, didn't have to throw one punch for the belt, and hasn't had to hasn't had to do a mandatory defense yet. You know, and now he's avoiding. Oh no, Charlo, no big drama show with Jermall Charlo. No big drama show. At the end of the day, man, you know, I love to see Triple G fight Jermall Charlo to see what's really good and see what level Jermall Charlo's on. Love to see Jermall Charlo fight versus Danny Jacobs. But at the end of the day, you know, that HBO circle, they want to keep that circle tight. And they may pay Jermall Charlo to go away. You know, they may. Because they don't want to dish out another multi-fight deal to Jermall Charlo. And they damn sure don't want him to walk over to HBO and dog walk Gennady Golovkin and walk away with that belt back to Showtime PBC. You know, they don't want to have to dish that money out. And that was to happen, he will walk away with 3 of the belts. And why did you invest in Danny Jacobs, Demetrius Andrade, Gennady Golovkin, and Canelo Alvarez, and potentially David Lemieux, Billy Joe Saunders winner for multi-fight deal with HBO? To have somebody from the other network walk away with 3 belts. And if he wasn't a threat, the fight would be made by now. You know, if he wasn't a threat, the fight would be talked about. If he was a guy that brought some fanfare and was little threat, they hop in the ring right with him. HBO, Eddie Hearn, as far as Danny Jacobs, Team Gennady Golovkin knows Jermall Charlo's a threat. You know, so he's not on that short list to be able to fight one of those guys. He's going to have to, you know, WBC is going to have to push that. And they put him in position. Now they got to do a little push. But let me know what y'all think about this situation. We out.